Okay, so good afternoon. This is Anto Budiardjo. Welcome to Monday Live. This is something that we do every Monday afternoon as we try and figure out what the future holds for smarter buildings. So it's really good that you're here with us on this conversation. In case you're wondering who we are here on Monday Live, our profiles are listed on mondaylive.org. And also just a reminder that views expressed here are personal, not of any company or organization. So keep that in mind. And also just to point out to use the Zoom chat as a way of interacting with the panel to make it much more lively conversation. And if you want anything that's on this slide deck, it's also available on mondaylive.org. So we are starting a new month today. This is the first Monday of April.
Wow.
And our theme for this month is AI across the stack. And the stack here is referring to the smarter stack that is a tool that we created some 3 or 4 years back that we want to revisit and sort of apply the AI thinking on it, see how what we're going to get out of that. So looking forward to that. Our agenda, normal news and chit chat to get us going, and then AI across the stack, the smarter stack. And then for today, we're just going to sort of focus on what the smarter stack is in the first place, why it was created, and then just start to get the sort of framing on how we could look at that slightly different with now that we have AI amongst us. So looking forward to that. But before then, I'm going to hand it over to Ken Sinclair for an update from Automated Buildings. Over to you, Ken.
Thanks, Santo. That's great. On the top left-hand corner there, we started this annoying acronym post, and it's part of our trying to add English subtitles to all the things that are going on Monday Live and C4SB. There's a lot of new terms coming. There's a lot of new ideas. We need to kind of soften our transition when we're presenting those to even folks that are fairly deep in our industry. We don't realize it that we go on week by week and we keep talking funnier, and we all understand what we're talking about, but we need to reach back and communicate it. So anyway, that post actually had good traction, so I think we'll keep heading in that direction. The one below that, the many flavors of governance, is the summary of the last month. I think that was well received. When we went into that month, we were a little bit unsure that governance was a topic for a month, and it turned out to be more than a topic for a month. Everybody is concerned about it, and a lot of good information exchanged. The one below that is why your building has data but no intelligence. This is simply an article that points at one of Kimon's articles and sort of does a summary of what it is he's talking about, because there's an awful lot of information in that article. So we're starting to almost have to paraphrase some of the articles, and that has got amazing traction. I would have, I think it's up around 700 or 800 interactions, which there's really no content in it other than the fact that it does a handoff to Kimon's, but it does a little bit of pre-spin, so you can kind of get your mind around what it is he's talking about. And below that is another one of Kimon's, the Architects of Intelligence, and that's a great another article that's well done. Below that is the Smarter Stack for Smarter Buildings. That actually links back on our site to the original 3 or 4 years ago when I interviewed Anto, and he told us about his vision of a smarter stack, and it actually links to, so you can actually step through the PowerPoint presentation for the smarter stack. So I think that's useful for today's conversation. Moving across, of course, right now, as we're talking, the Niagara Summit is going on. It's starting. There's a lot of people in the industry that are involved in that. Just keep it going across the slide there. I did a quick history of convergence, and actually I said I did, but it was actually AI. And what's interesting in that is that if you have a tremendous amount of information and it's in any kind of organized format, it's amazing how much AI can pull out of it. That whole article took me probably less than 10 minutes to write, and I was surprised at the way it took the sessions and broke them into eras, the very different areas of convergence that we went through, and then I think it did a pretty good job of summing up where we are now, and it because automated buildings had all that information on it, and I was automated buildings, and it had access to both all my emails and the website. It was amazing what it was able to pull together quickly. So I think it's a living example of what's coming. In addition to that, we got that robot down there playing with the children, and I think robots are still pretty strange to us, but they fascinate children, and it's it's likely that one of their best friends will be a robot. So that's an interesting concept. That's also been extremely well read. Just a couple of housekeeping things. Our free education sessions are still online. We're working on getting the upgrades to them. Our content performance is going well. That number says that we had 10,000 hits. I saw one that was 11.5 or something like that. We're getting a lot of interest from folks outside the industry or in related industries. As we move into the AI industry, as we move into connected cloud, as we move into all kinds of directions that are kind of on the edge of the traditional HVAC and control stuff we talk about, the market is certainly extending, and we're getting a lot of uptake. And I think we have to keep remembering that. And even though we all understand what's going on in the industry, we have to stop and take time to kind of explain it. And then on the bottom one, the last one is those guys from the Muppets that used to sit in the gallery and be the cynics and stuff. And I sometimes think, that's me and a few of the old fellows in the industry that are just up there shaking our fist in changing all this stuff. But I'm trying to follow. Honest, I'm trying to follow. Anyway, back to you.
Yeah, that's very, very amusing. And mentioning convergence reminds me of like 20, 25 years ago when I was starting to do conferences. That was the key word. For a few years, convergence was all that anybody wanted to talk about in buildings. Interesting. Rick, what's going on?
Oh, a lot of things going on at C4SB, and I've consolidated down to one slide now, and hopefully I can. I'm going to give hope Pete Scanlon a little heads up here. Hopefully, he can post in the link for the first Thursday's call that we're going to start having on May 7th. And rather than spend too much time today on updating any of the what's happening with working groups or status, I just wanted to highlight that we're going to start to have once a month. We're kind of calling it a town hall. Obviously, we need a new logo, but we're going to have monthly sessions where we update what's happening with C4SB, and we also want to try and use that as some technical dives as well into some of the other working groups that are what's happening with different working groups. We're having great success and great attendance on the Friday, formerly known as Tiger Team calls, now the Semantic Buildings call that Paris 2 Dogochet hosts. And we're going to sort of complement that with once a month more deep dives into some of the technology and specific developments that are happening in some of the other working groups as well. So the link for the Zoom call on the first Thursdays magically just appeared in the chat.
What do you know? What do you
How
know?
about that? Thank you, Pete. And
That's
it'll
is
be,
that for 1 hour, 3 to 4?
I believe that's what it's scheduled for. Yes.
Great.
And there's a small fee to no, it's free. Anybody can join. If you would like to send money, I've got a Cash App link that I'll post later too. So, but It's free for everybody to be able to join, and if you've got ideas for specific technical topics that you'd like to be covered, great. We'll establish sort of um establish some means of communications for specifically for that call, and I think we're going to use one of the Linux Foundation tools for that, but we don't have that set up yet. But for now, just make note of the time, and we'll go from there.
Can you give us a thumbnail description of the Agentic AI Foundation?
So
I'm
yeah,
familiar with that one.
that is actually one of the new. It's not part of C4SB, and I meant to sort of like put like a dotted line around a couple of different working groups. Is Agentic AI is a top level one of the most exciting working groups inside the Linux Foundation. Maybe only a few months old. It's got 10 core members at the premier level that are 10 of the most famous, richest companies you could ever imagine, like the Anthropics and the Googles and the Amazons and and such. And they make up what is now an effort to have AI, especially agentic AI, be an open and a Linux-based open community effort. It was it was kicked off with Anthropic contributing MCP, if I get this right, Model Control Protocol, um, for the advancement of large language models to be made, AI accessible. And um, you know, AI, when OpenAI kind of hit the scene with ChatGPT, it was intended to be an open community. And then, as most of us know, OpenAI kind of reversed course and made themselves a private, for-profit entity. It didn't take then too long for a whole bunch of other companies to jump in, and for a bunch of them to say together, "Hey, we should form an open source, open standards-based community." And that's what. So agentic, the AAIF resulted from the effort to actually have community-based AI governance.
Is there any way we could put that information behind that name? So when I clicked on it, I got just about exactly what you did. This is all part of my theme to to add English subtitles to everything you've got going, and that would be a great way of doing it. Just that was a great description you just gave, by the way. I did not know what that was, and now I do. And I think there's probably others that didn't as well. But if we had that sort of when you click on each one of those icons, if you just had a 15, 20 word description of what the group was about, I think that would add a lot of power to your page.
That's a great idea. I
Okay.
think on our website we've moved towards having more clickable icons, but we don't have it on everything yet, obviously.
Good, thanks.
Okay, thank you, Rick. Let's move on. Anything else from anyone else?
I have something. Actually, if you go
Kimon?
quickly back to the previous slide, so I'll just talk to that. So last week, as part of the Tiger team, like Rick mentioned, the Semantic Building Group Friday meeting, we had a pretty major milestone where we had the entire PAE, I'm going to start going into acronym world now too, but PAE building imported into the semantic bridge. And we had from BIM, and we had 122,000 triplets, as they're called, the relationships between equipment and systems and other things in the building automatically generated in an RDF. Let's go back to Ken's acronym finder there. But that was the first time we got the full building in as part of the cloud BIM. And then relating even to the open building stack, I had Skycentrics showing how you can actually have a conversation with the energy in the building. So this is kind of a 1-year effort that's finally coming together because of all this. And I was thinking about this complexity of these acronyms and describing what RDF and turtle files are and everything, but imagine a crime scene wall with all these lines connecting photographs and things. That's essentially what's happening. We're connecting the dots between disparate pieces of information, whether they're physical sensors, business requirements. And before that, that whole crime scene box, it was in several different boxes that weren't talking to each other. So essentially we have this 122,000 relationships now all connected live in a graph that can be used, and we're using MCP and all that stuff. So now you can start having a conversation with the AI with that graph on the wall, the cloud BIM, and the relationship between that. So it's kind of a culmination of the C4SB effort with PAE. We'll be publishing more about that soon too. We've been kind of putting more of that out now.
That's exciting.
And I'll put a link to the video of the last Friday's session because it was pretty interesting. Rick was there and others were there as well too.
Great.
Good stuff. I'm just now imagining Zoom calls talking about PAE with all those lines behind you.
Yeah, the criminals.
Yeah, the criminals.
Actually,
like
Keith is a specialist at that, connecting the crime scene.
We want nothing to do with that.
Right.
We need a bigger whiteboard, that's for sure.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's continue to move on. Anything else from anyone? Hearing none, let us proceed. So we're talking about AI across the stack. We really need to start with what the smarter stack is all about. So this is about 4 years ago, 22. I think somebody looked up the actual dates at the end, towards the end of 22 or something like that. That we really wanted to find a way of organizing all of these things. This is all pre-AI and pre a lot of things that we've been talking about. Organizing all of the technologies involved in buildings, because there are so many different sort of aspects of it. So we thought we should create some kind of tool, and in that process ended up in the smarter stack. So this is actually the smarter stack, and it's actually available at stack.mondaylive.org. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put that in chat so you can all have it. But when you go to that website, you come to this, right? You're actually coming to this place, and you can get a copy of the smarter stack for your own use. You can get a template, and you can actually just use this, and you can do whatever you want. This is open source with material. So what is this all about? So when we started thinking about building, this is back then, 4 years ago, we tried to simplify as much as possible. And what we said is that there's basically 3 things going on. There are us humans that we're sort of refer to as users here. So we are using buildings, right? We occupy them, we own them, we otherwise consume the buildings. We go to school in them, we work in them, whatever it is, or we own them, right? Those are all things that we as humans, that's what we do. That's why we have buildings, is to enable that that whatever happens in this red thing. And right at the bottom is the actual building itself, right? With all of the systems that exist in that building, the physical building. And what we're really trying to do is to figure out what the smarts that needs to exist between the two. It's kind of the sort of the formulation we went down. And so this is kind of the start. And then what we said was that users isn't really just a big group of the same type of people, right? We said that we can actually split the humans into 2 major groups. People who are interested in the purpose of the building, and that could include owners, the operators, the managers, as well as occupants. So these are people that are sort of consumers of the buildings. They don't really operate the building. They have nothing to do with how the building works or anything other than just consuming the building. So that is one half or one type of users that have a relationship to buildings. And the other type of users that have a relationship to buildings are those that actually operate it. So these are the individuals that either run the FM or do run the energy system or maintain the buildings or whatever it is, but they're actually there to make the building operate. So that's the operation side of things. So it's good to separate those two. And down at the bottom, it's not just a build, it's not just the building itself. It's actually the physical aspects of the building, the concrete, the steel, and the equipment, and whatever it is that actually makes the building, and the spaces and everything else, right? Just sort of thinking about all of those. And then the systems, which are the automation systems and the devices and whatever it is, not just HVAC, obviously, that allows us to manage all of the physical stuff, right? So that's really what happens in the building. And the smarts, we said, is really, if you think about the smart stuff in the middle, you really need to split it up in this way. So I'm going to go from the bottom, but you can go from either side. There's obviously the data. That's an important consideration, right? Because it has to be stored and it has to be governed and all of the stuff that we've been talking about. So that's definitely a thing of its own. At the time, we were talking a lot about this, which is kind of how the data gets exchanged with each other. The original word for this was actually exchange, the very early days, and we changed it to orchestrate. So this is the activities involved in making the data and making the systems much more available to be used. So it's actually orchestrating everything. And sort of things like semantics go in here, tagging goes in here, all those kind of things. Middleware is all about orchestration, et cetera, et cetera. It's the thing that makes the multiplicity of systems work with each other. And then above that are the apps themselves. They're the things that actually do stuff. These are apps wherever they exist. And then what we felt that was necessary was to separate the apps from how those apps are being delivered, right? So the delivery of the apps to the entity that's above, that's obviously the users. So this sort of built up this sort of stack of 8 layers. And this is just the descriptions that basically the same as what I've been saying. Right. So, and the whole idea is that everything that we sort of think about with regards to smarter buildings really is involving these layers in some sort of combination. Right. And one of the sort of filters that somebody came up with as we were doing this is to say, okay, this is interesting because it gives a sort of very interesting Simon Sinek view, which is start with why. Right? The purpose is the why. That's the only reason why anything happens, is that there is a reason to do something. That's the purpose. And then the two things at the top there, the operation and the delivery, is really the how. It's how things actually happen to serve that why. And everything else is really just the what, the pieces of technology, the components. And what we started to do with this is that we started to say, okay, so we can use this to model things. So a traditional vertically integrated solution that we're very familiar with, that's sort of been the mainstay for the last few decades of HVAC, is really this. It actually integrates everything from systems all the way up to delivery. Right. So all of the components of this, in other words, all the data is all part of it. The actual control system is part of it. Whatever it does by way of orchestration, everything is all inside, and the actual applications are inside, and the thing is what gets delivered to the operation, the people. Right? So this is the traditional way, and with the smarter stack, we can start to break these things down, because an IDL is basically a thing that exists on the data layer. That's simple, right? And all of these different things we can start to separate by having, a thing that sort of dealing with controls, automation, a different IDL, different application, the equipment and the building itself. We can start to sort of put these in the different places in the stack and start to think about how they relate to each other. And this is just examples, what I'm doing. So it may not make total sense in reality. You can put semantic tagging there. You can create other systems, bring in other systems, and bring in orchestration. you can sort of start to think about single pane of glass and things like digital twin, which is in a way of delivering that information to the users, to the two types of users, right? So this, you start to be able to create this sort of structure on the right, and this starts to look like system of systems, because it really is. And the sort of the big point here is that you cannot do that on the vertically integrated solution. That was the big point, is that by splitting things up, we're able to make things very flexible, contrasting to the integrated, vertically integrated solution. And obviously, we spent a lot of time at the end of last year when we were talking about decomposing and recomposing, and this is similar kind of flow. And so we can use this. I'm just going to go quickly through, this is just how we're using the stack. And this is one particular depiction. I can't remember what this was done for, but you could start to use this because it's a slide deck to tell stories. And when C4SB started on the Div 2525 project, at the very beginning of that project, we kind of looked at what needed to be done, and we kind of said that maps very nicely to how we can apply it to the smarter stack. So this is how we did that. And if you look at the Div 2525, it is basically based on this structure. And there are other examples, but if you go to that link that I provided you, that provides you that all of that you're seeing here. So that was what was created about 4 years ago. And I just, before handing it back to the panel, to the team to discuss, what I did was I obviously asked AI to create this, and it did this very fun diagram, which is cool. But then I thought it would be worth asking AI what it thought it could do in the smarter stack, just to get a little bit of somewhere to start. So I did that. I did exactly that. I just went to Claude, which is ChatGPT, I think it is, and I said, how does AI relate to a smarter stack? And I explained what the smarter stack is, and gave it the resources. And it says, okay, so these are kind of images all created by AI, thinking of AI's role in it. So the first thing it basically did is to say, okay, just put AI everything from the bottom to the top. Okay, that's not very useful. That's kind of interesting. Then it kind of said, this just makes it easier, right? You can now go now in bloom. Yeah, whatever that means. It's kind of a bit wishy-washy. But this one I thought was interesting, because this one says, oh, well, clearly AI is really the purpose, right? You can think about AI as something that is focused on the purpose. And this obviously, if you sort of think about this models what the human structure is. You have a head at the top, you have a purpose, an operation, that you think about that dealing with everything, and everything else below is just sort of peripherals to do whatever the brain wants to do. So that's kind of one sort of interesting way of looking at it. This is another one, and we discussed this on last Wednesday on our planning call, and some of these actually were sort of concepts that came out in that call. This is another way of thinking about AI being able to help at each specific layer differently, which is kind of interesting, to think about, a human outcomes bot, whatever that is. An orchestration AI, okay, that kind of makes sense. Not sure what that is. And then this is, I'm not really sure what it is. It's thinking that it means the stack needs to be enclosed in everything else that's going in the world, I guess. And then there's this guy. It's my favorite. I'm the boss. This is Anto's AI that he keeps on talking about. AI is the purpose. I don't think this is great. But anyway, I just did that just to get the juices flowing, and I'll stop the share, and we can have a conversation or a debate on AI across the stack.
All right. So Anto, if you could you go back to the one slide that had the robots at each level of the stack?
This one.
Yeah, that one. Okay. As you mentioned, on Wednesday, we started to talk through conceptually the idea that would have a role to play in each level of the stack, and I was a proponent of that way of thinking. And when the slide prior to this, where it basically was a brain with the spiral the your
Spinal cord.
spinal cord, yes, thank you. Spinal cord going down, right, throughout the body. But I think that's the mechanism by which you get all the neural activity up to the brain. But when you think about it in terms of how the human body works from its organs perspective, so each organ has tremendous intelligence about the work it does, right? So, whether you're talking about the pancreas or the stomach or the liver, etc., those organs in and of themselves know exactly how to do their role. So that's what caught my attention about the standalone, which is that by having the standalone AI associated with each level of the stack, that's applying the intelligence of AI to the role it needs to play at that level in the stack, right? Once it's done its job, it goes up the spinal column to the brain, right? Where anybody and everybody can access the data that they need and have it know that they're going to get the data they require, irrespective of where it's coming from within the stack. And so that's my, I guess, 2 cents about those two
So
images
it's
that
really
you showed.
your view is really a sort of a combination of these two.
That's correct. Yeah, you got it. Yep.
Great. Others want to chime in?
I do. Sorry, I'm at an airport. Sorry for the background and connection.
Okay.
When you have the operations layer, the two users, there's the there's the occupier, and then there's the operator. And you had people there. I do wonder if even the ultimate goal is the operations folk is going to be AI itself at one point as well, right? So the only real purpose will be for the occupier.
Right, because you're saying that the operation could all be done by AI and therefore there are no humans there, kind of thing.
I could see a point in time where, now up to maybe where, you may have to send someone to tamp a connection or something else, the people in the basement with all the screens, I could see them all going away.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, by calling it the operations co-pilot, that kind of denotes and infers like a default to human in the loop type operations, and you guys know where I stand on that. But yeah,
I was interested just to look at the entire stack that you have, look at what layers are going to be disrupted by AI, what layers are going to be replaced by AI, what layers are going to augment what's there. So I think that, when we were preparing for this on Wednesday, we talked about some of the things that will heavily be disrupted, and the data and orchestration layers are being heavily disrupted by AI right now, and I expect the application layers purpose and operation to be disrupted fairly heavily as well as the time goes on.
well, yeah, and we've kind of got the same thing going on across multiple layers, like the apps. I see there's a building application assistant. I see that there's a data quality assistant. I mean, they're kind of like, so I mean, it's great to show that AI actually has the human biases in the sum of the internet, intelligence. So yeah, I would not tightly couple that to humans at all.
I think one thing that's missing in the story is new value that AI will add that we haven't contemplated yet. And love to learn how to think about that. I'm not sure I know yet, but I think that's we're looking sort of in the rear view mirror as to the value and the disruption and what can be done. But forward looking, I do believe there will be future applications that are more interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So Jim,
I have wondered if we were in the situation of amongst ourselves wanting to create the smarter stack today, knowing AI exists, how that would look.
yeah, Anto, that was the point I was going to make when Jim said that AI is disrupting various layers of the stack. So it's almost like we ought to maybe consider creating an AI version of the stack that it potentially collapses or eliminates certain layers if we really believe that that's what's going to ultimately happen. Um, and maybe there's a migration path that needs to be considered, but I do agree that what Jim was saying, that it's disruptive. So is it time to recreate or smarter stack AI version?
I agree that needs to be done, Steve, but I think it might be a little early in the game because we don't exactly know what those disruptions are going to be at level yet.
Yep.
I think, like we said on the Wednesday prep, right, that using the stack is from my perspective, it's a great mechanism to start to look across all the things that we do today and to the point of this whole exercise, where some of that disruption might be. And, you could approach that different ways. I do like your approach, Jim, about, rather than doing disruption for the sake of disruption, because it's going to happen, but how do you disrupt for future value, right? And I think there's a term for that, right? Where you, where you, where you break it down for future value. So I think that's a great approach to look at too. And the other one I think is, as we said, there's elements across all the stacks. But from my perspective, this is a really good process of, well, which, again, for the work I'm doing, which one of these would be of most value for disruption, for the type of work I do. And I think everyone will have a different perspective based on, where they focus on the stack as well.
So Kimon, you have your hand up, and
Yeah.
this whole smarter stack thing is very new to you because I don't think you were participating in Monday Live when we did this originally.
Yeah, I wasn't, but it's familiar now too. I think I saw some parts of it. And what's interesting, I think, looking at it the way it is right now and where we are right now, where we are today, obviously this kind of a classification system is interesting and still relevant, I think. But if you start layering AI into it, it's non-linear. It's not like comparing it to SQL database versus how LLMs work. AIs can reach across different domains, different pieces, which goes back to that crime scene thing that I was talking about, right? You can cross over from a picture of a person to the map, to the gun, to the this, to the that, to that, all these unrelated things to tell the story. And even the PA building that I mentioned earlier, we have the physical building, but we also have the RDF on top of it that's related to the physical, but it's more about the meaning and the relationships, which kind of touches the other things, the purpose. Why does this room exist? It's because the owner wants this. There's rent associated with it. So there's a lot of crossover activity that was difficult to do before, both from a technical perspective and even an understanding perspective. But with the use of AI, for example, you can assign an agent to say, go and talk to this other agent that knows a lot about the physical building, and this other agent that knows a lot about the purpose of the owner of why this building exists, and to the utility to know how much energy costs and put together or whatever. So it's kind of I see it more like a cloud, right? I mean, it's good to have this stack here to kind of organize it, but then it kind of splits off into more abstractions.
Rick, do you have any thoughts on this? You've been quiet. And Tracy as well, if you're there. Maybe they're not there.
I'm here. I don't know if you can hear me or not.
Yep.
The the thing that I've been thinking about how to look at this is really there's two different areas of disruption here. When we first, whoever it was that came up with the idea to look at, AI's impact on the stack like this, the things that I see are twofold. There's the impact on the technology and the products and disruption, obviously in both those areas. But then the impact on the people that work at each level of this is going to be significant disruption as well, I think.
Yeah, just as a reminder, we were using this. I mean, I'm going to scan through some of these examples. We were using this in very different ways. We're using it in terms of identifying categories, but at some point we're talking about things like where roles exist. So an integrator would most likely be a delivery, somebody that sits or is comfortable in the delivery layer. That would SPOG is obviously there. Middleware is obviously something that is in the orchestration layer. So there are sort of tendencies where different roles and different types of companies, different types of different types of companies are suitable at different layers. And yeah, the AI disruption would obviously impact things differently for different people.
Yeah, and I
Greg,
apologize. I'm
thoughts?
not on camera, but I think that the thing, having a little bit of flashbacks to a couple years ago when we started to predict that high-level people in every organization were going to say they want to see AI used everywhere. And so, and they want to see everybody in their organization, create a report like tomorrow to describe how they're going to use AI to make things better. Whatever your responsibility is, removing snow, or whatever your job is, whatever your role is, whatever your product is, you're going to be held accountable to show how AI is going to be used. And we're starting to see that. We're starting to see, because I can use AI for so many things now. If I'm an executive at a company, or if I'm an innovator, or if I'm an investor, I'm wanting to think about how AI can be used for adding competitive advantage, or adding efficiency, or adding whatever, or subtracting for that matter. And the AI applied to everything would obviously include AI applied to everything in that smarter stack. And that slide you just showed, where it was a very, very busy slide of all the different things as examples that would fit in different parts of the smarter stack. I think we started to say a couple of years ago, there isn't going to be anybody or anything that's exempt from having to explain itself of how it's going to be better using AI. Not one thing, not one person. And that's what we're seeing now. And we're seeing examples of letters being issued from the top of organizations saying, hey, I'm realizing that a bunch of you are coming back to me with really bad answers in terms of how AI can be used across your domain or your responsibility. And so I think it's kind of interesting that the call was very predictable, that there would be, how are you using AI in your organization, your responsibility, your product, your department? And yet we're still struggling with, oh gosh, I wonder what it's going to be like when AI starts to have an impact, or when AI starts to be required. So I think we're at that point where it's all of a sudden not an optional thing anymore to think about. And
I think, yeah, to build on that, Rick, I agree with you 100%. I mean, it happened, with me and where I'm at. It came full force, and I was, same as you mentioned, I had to do the report saying, here's what I'm applying AI for, and all this sort of stuff. But I think we've gone through that second round already now of, yeah, the first round stuff was interesting and off the top of our head. Now they're going back to, no, I need something more substantive, right? And to Jim's point, where's the value add? Why are we doing it? Not doing it for the sake of doing it, not doing it for the sake of disruption. What is the value add of doing it, right? Whether that's a cost savings, whether that's improved value, whether that's new applications, like Jim said, that we hadn't thought of in the past. So in our world, we're going through that second phase already.
It seems like there would have to be a new report almost every week. I think something new every week that AI can do to help on some aspect of my business.
You're right, Tracy. In fact, my team actually now uses AI to do the reports, of course.
So they can,
Actually, I think that maybe a requirement of AI is that we have to start building into it its self-documenting actions, and it has to explain to us its actions, not so much in English words, but in results. And I think that it bumps into some of the stuff we've been talking about by creating histories and verifications of what actual savings and what actual improvements in performance are being made. And so that's got to be a bigger thing, because the way AI looks at a picture, two pictures, and the way a person looks at two pictures is, first we have to generate the two pictures, give them to them, and then they look at it and they tell us what the difference is. AI doesn't even look at the pictures. It looks at the two files and says, this bit's different. So it's a pretty simple decision. It's like a digital decision to the machine, and it's a messy decision for us. So as we eliminate those kind of decisions, we have to somehow convince the AI that it has to spoon feed us and turn what it's doing into English subtitles so we can move on.
Well, the cheat sheets for AI is kind of what you're describing. Is that, and so I wanted to kind of throw in the whole total cost of ownership, or the TxO tool that we created. We did not create that for the industry. We created that for the executives who are wondering how much opportunity there actually is for improvement. Hate to give away the plot, but that's what we were doing with creating TxO, is to give the machines and the executives an idea of what could it be like? How effective could my spending on buildings be? Not just energy, but operations and capital, maintenance, et cetera. To give a little bit of, I hate using the word guardrails, but to give a little bit of context for what the potential is, and to give a sort of a setting for the ROI calculation. So what's the benefit of doing something more efficiently? How big is the bread box is sort of the point there. So the whole TxO effort was to start to create, how big is the number? How significant is the savings or the efficiency? Or if I can make my building or my operations be more competitive by winning more customers, what does that equal? What are the numbers? Because I think a lot of people don't even know how many buildings they've got, how many square feet they've got, or how much they spend at all. So creating an ROI calculation or creating a why was difficult. But by creating that context, that gives at least the AI and the executives a little bit of a head start of knowing what to sort of expect from better efficiency or better competitiveness.
So guys,
written by humans, or is that written by AI, or is that an integral part of AI?
Well, I think you can expect AI to be keeping score.
Yeah. Look, I suggested on our Wednesday call that we kind of methodically go through the stack and have a discussion around what we see AI, the value AI could bring to each level in the stack. And I really, in the Mondays to come, I really think we should do that, because we've been talking very high level generalities for the past 30 minutes and not drilling into, okay, at the physical layer, the building, the construction of the building, what do we see that AI could bring to that specific level? That we know BIM has a role there, but BIM in its original incarnation didn't contemplate AI. If you start adding AI at that level, what changes? How does that enable, for example, the TxO calculation that Rick was referring to? So, but I just think some specific discussions around the possibilities at each level deserve our time in the Mondays to come. It's my opinion. I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah, and to Rick's point, I think AI is a great equalizer in that it brings, I'll go ahead and use it, honesty to the whole process. Like there's no thumb on the scale stuff with AI. For example, on energy efficiency project, like, none of the companies that I work for ever did this, but I have seen other companies that where you're doing an ESCO project and you're trying to get fan savings, and it's like, go ahead and lean on that varicone to make sure it's at maximum, static pressure, something that it can never physically do in the real world. And yeah, you're putting your thumb on the scale to do an artificially high baseline so you can meet the target. AI eliminates all that because it's going to do its own baseline. It's going to be the real baseline, not the thumb on the scale cheating baseline. So I think AI forces a lot of honesty, and then, back into you can run, but you can't hide. You're going to have to really bring real beneficial value and not just be able to talk and pencil whip it to your customers.
I think one of the things that we struggled with on Wednesday is how to do this, how to look at the layers and sort of have a conversation about how AI helps or hinder or whatever the situation is. But maybe what our conversation today maybe is sort of leading us that way, because we have to do that. We have to take each layer and sort of consider them separately. Kimon?
Yeah, relating to that and also to what was talked about earlier, I think obviously, yeah, AI is forcing the discussion, right? You can't just show PowerPoints and say, here's how you solve AI. You actually have to dive in and show how things work. Like,
Right.
It's my post that I wrote about. We can talk forever about how to ride the bicycle, but until you get on the bike, you're not riding the bicycle, you're just talking about it. And I think the best way for us to tackle this is have the concept there, but actually apply it to something real. And we actually have something real. We have stuff on the repo with an actual building, with actual data, with actual systems that is shared on the repo. And if we actually focus on that, since we have that as a resource, then it becomes real. Otherwise, it's just a bunch of war stories and talking about riding the bike. I think I would suggest that not do one or the other, but do both. And I think that acceleration would help us kind of make it real and point to something. Because I've found that over and over throughout the years, even before AI, even with BIM and everything, a lot of PowerPoints of use cases of how things worked and how successful it was and blah, 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 blah. And it's meaningless until you actually get back into it and do something with it. That's the opportunity, I think.
Tracy, you want to chime in?
I don't know if I have anything new to add to all of that. I missed, unfortunately, I was in transition, so I missed some of what was being said, but I think this is going to be an interesting month of discussion regarding this when we start pulling this apart a little bit. I kind of feel like, even especially as an industry, it is what Anna was sort of referring to, that second awakening. We're past the initial learning curve and maybe we plateaued for a few minutes and now everybody's consciousness and eyes are opening to what really are the possibilities here and how will this really impact things here going forward. I know just in the last couple of weeks, I've seen things that I never even conceived of before, and people are already out there doing it, right? So that's going to get really interesting. as we move forward in this industry.
Yeah, I think we want to watch the duocracy. We want to watch the people that are doing it. And that's Tracy's sentiments and Kimon's as well. And that's, I think what it's good to do is take those examples and bring them back to the stack and try and make them fit. And I suspect some of them are not going to fit the stack. And I think that's an important part of the message.
Yeah, one of the things that sort of came up on Wednesday is the sort of really is just the notion, do we actually need the smarter stack now? We have AI. Doesn't AI sort of eat the stack? Does it make it, redundant?
Yeah,
And
redundant at least. Yeah.
I think we quickly on Wednesday said, no, that's not the case. And I'm sort of hearing from what's being said that we don't need to throw this out because it has some use. Are we all on the same page there?
Yeah. Danielle says, don't throw away your frameworks.
Right.
Not yet, at least.
Yeah.
It's like the map of where you've been is always a useful map when you're going somewhere new.
I would not
I'm
be
still just
surprised.
fascinated by.
Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead, Anna.
You gave up.
I would not be surprised, like many things, we've probably all seen over the years, that there'll be a bit of a pendulum swing here, where everything will swing way AI and at one point, and then it will swing back. And not that the technology will ever go backwards or anything, but applying new frameworks and seeing the structure as it is after AI is implemented throughout. I wouldn't be surprised if we see something like that happen.
Yeah, because AI gets embedded in what we do. It just becomes a different set of things that we do. AI is just hidden in it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what happens.
We have to remember we're trying to teach AI with all our biases and all of the things we've done wrong in the past. As we kind of move ahead, that's going to straighten itself out. And the AI of the future, or taking a look at what we actually are doing, what the duocracy has created. And like you say, things that you never even imagined. And when AI sees some of that stuff, it's going to make some other just highly aha. AI will have some aha moments. These people really don't know what they're doing.
How many years do you think it will take for us to rid the human bias out of this whole thing? It's probably going to be a while, I'm guessing.
I think
maybe never.
It's a matter of segmentation. Like we keep lumping in the two processes. I mean, there's machine autonomy, and then there's co-pilots. I mean, would anybody have governance over the code that's running in a pacemaker? Like, absolutely not. It's an autonomic function. I wouldn't want to have governance over that. It's autonomous. It just runs behind the scenes, and that's where we're coming at it.
Tracy, I think you're going to have to pay extra for that human element in the future.
Yeah, it'll come back, right? It will.
You want to have
it's funny that saying you have on your whiteboard there about the factory of the future. I originally heard that, gosh, I was working at Intel and we were working with Boeing on the 777 when they were first coming to market with the 777. And that was the saying they had, the plane was going to be designed to be operated by one pilot and one dog. And the pilot was there to feed the dog, and the dog was there to bite the pilot if he tried to fly the plane. Right? Because it was going to be so automated, and the plane would be able to fly itself way better than if a human were in the loop.
Yeah, I think the point is that there are some programs that humans absolutely don't need to understand. I mean, people, I don't want any human having insight into my pacemaker code. Like, seriously, it's like I'm gonna die. So, yeah, better to keep them out of that process. They might try to save energy or something, and then I have a heart attack and die or something.
Whoops.
Okay, I think this has been a great start to this month's conversation on this. Look forward to next week when I think what we'll probably start to do is just pick a layer at a time and sort of just dig deep into what the impact of AI is on that layer, and then we'll come to some conclusion out of that. So I think that should be good. So thanks all. Thanks everybody. We'll get the video out tomorrow or thereabouts. And I hope you all have a great week and see you next week.
Okay.
Bye all.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.